Andrew, Sadiq Khan is under fire for promoting adverts for what on the London Underground?
Well, it is extraordinary. I saw this advert. It's an Islamic bank which has a controversial, let me put it that way, preacher, and they're burning dollars and so on and so forth, because Islamic banks, they don't allow interest and so on and so forth. So that's at the same time that you have a comedian, you might remember, who wasn't allowed to advertise his hot dog comedy tour with a hot dog because it breached their rules about junk food. So he ended up with a cucumber, which is far more suggestive. So he worked on that basis. And also, I think an artisan cheese also got banned, but you can have these controversial preachers burning dollars, and that's
well,
okay.
I went to quite a nice play where they had, it was about a wedding, and it was like this immersive experience play. They got banned because of the cake, but the cake was it was made of wood. Imagine wooden cakes are no good, Peter. The other thing is, Andrew, we don't defend the moderates. I mean, I watch I don't watch the BBC. Let's rephrase that. If I watched the BBC, what I would find is time and time again, hate-filled extremists like Anjam Chowdhury, now in prison, were allowed to represent the Muslim community in Britain. The ordinary, moderate, decent people just get shoved out the way.
No, you're right. And it's also, as you get sort of white heterosexual males are also banned now.
That's right.
That sort of thing. And anything to do with hot dogs, the two are not connected.
What's wrong with you? What is wrong with you?
You work on that basis. This is where it's all gone completely crazy, hasn't it?
It has indeed. Yeah. Anyway, so he's burning dollars.
He's burning dollars.
I'm not so bothered about the burning dollar thing because it's supposed to be against the idea of interest.
It is. The idea is that you can't let money do nothing. That's the whole principle about Islam, which you can. That's what they believe in. That's absolutely fine. You turn around, so earning money by doing nothing, which is effectively
usury, to use our.
There you go. So that's wrong. But it's the principle, isn't it? It's the hypocrisy where we go back, where you can't have your hot dogs, you can't have your cheese, but you can have your burning dollars and your Islamic bank.
And also, women in bikinis. Sadiq wasn't keen on that.
Yeah.
You and I can agree to arbitration by whatever mechanism we want, as long as it's a civil dispute.
Yeah, absolutely. And as long as you comply with the laws of the country that you're living in. I mean, that's the key to all of this.
But I think that's Pete's concern, is that we won't be doing that. Yeah. I have to say, I've said this a few times before, my niece is a privileged young person. She goes to a school called Bolton School, which is quite posh, in Greater Manchester. But her coach drives through parts of Bolton where girls her age are sent for child marriage in Pakistan. They're British nationals as well, and we do nothing about it. OK, anyway, what's Sadiq Khan under fire for this week?
Well, many things, but the Islamic bank and advertising and burning dollars allowed on the tube when you can't have your hot dog.
That's absolutely correct. Do you know what Jasper Carrot said about fat people?
What?
Oh, God. What they have to realise is that this hole is bigger than that one, right? It's got a bigger capacity.
I love such classy shows. It's got
But it's true, though. I mean, the reason why I'm fat is because I eat healthy food and wash it down with 10 pints of lager. I mean, the whole, my hormones. Or when I worked in Parliament, used to get, I've got a thyroid problem, I can't work.
You don't pay me enough.
Do you know Bernie Sanders has claimed that Ozempic is going to bankrupt Medicare?
Oh, well, I mean...
Medicaid.
Yeah,
whichever
Medicaid.
I mean, it is about, roughly, depending on the dosage, about £200 pop. Obviously...
Yeah. It's $1,700 a month in the United States of America.
Well, yes. So
it's not here.
I've worked with pharmaceutical companies previously, so I have a bit of an insight into what they do in order to get market access, etc., to increase uptake. The UK isn't a very sexy market.
Well, what do they do? What's your insight?
So they will put out these programmes to make where it's such as getting unemployment down, etc., in order to basically make themselves look a bit better, make themselves look good, and then increase their uptake over the longer term. Because the issue with these jabs is if you don't make lifestyle changes after you stay on them forever, you then need to continually go on them. Because
exactly the point. And this is called Mounjaro, is the name of this one. It's not Ozempic, it's a different one. And it's supposed to be the king of slimming jabs.
But isn't the slight problem, and I've interviewed medics before who say the big problem is you will lose both muscle and fat.
Well, yes, but that does actually come with any weight loss you have whatsoever.
Oh, I didn't know. I thought I'd be like Arnie. I'll be back.
But muscle is really important because if you actually... Because the next thing I like a muscle guy as much as anybody else. But
I like a muscle guy as much as he does. Are you really saying that about your best chum?
I've only got one big... I've only got one big muscle. Jaw.
No, but there is a serious aspect to this, that we have a huge productivity problem, we have a huge unemployment problem, and we have huge, what they call the economically inactive. And, you know, we've tried everything so far, so I don't really see what the problem is of trialling this. I think they want to give it a go in Greater Manchester. It's about 250,000 people, just to see whether it works over a 5-year period. I'm not really that opposed to it, because the one thing I'm getting a little sick and tired of... One second. I'm getting sick and tired of is this idea that we have one golden policy that suddenly fixes everything. I think we have to get away from that idea. Maybe we should just give something a try. I don't really think...
I've changed my mind about this.
Go on then.
Right, I've got to say to you, just think of the time when everyone who is unemployed is hot. Right, and then basically your lager and lime down the working men's club goes further than ever before. When all of those people that have nothing better to do other than sleep with me are suddenly unbelievable. Come on, baby, come on, fill your boots.
But it's 11 billion a year obesity costs on the NHS. The question is,
I hate when they say NHS costs. Right, what they should do is they should excuse me from paying the tax. Don't treat me for being fat.
There you
Just
go.
excuse me the tax.
So, that's a good idea. Maybe that should be a policy as well. But the reality is exactly that. And Katie makes a brilliant point. You can't have your Katie and eat it, because once you come off it, you're going to go back and you're going to start eating again. And the salad dodgers will carry on dodging that salad once they're off the injection.
OK, so what did Frank Sidebottom West Streeting say? He does. He looks like the Sidebottom.
He does.
Right, OK. What did he say the unemployed should get to get them back to work?
He said that they should get the semaglutide weight loss-inducing medications.
All right, love.
Back into
He didn't say That's certainly not what he said.
All right, love, calm it. I've got 3 weight loss jabs, not semaglutide, sodium hydroxide, paraglobin, or whatever the hell it was. OK, to Andrew. Director General Tim Davie has banned which word?
Mediamarkt gekkenhuisdeal. Scoor deze Samsung 60-inch LED-tv voor maar €488.
From the BBC.
Well, he's banned all talent. I mean, that's the basic idea. So you've got to work on that, but we have no talent here. Thank you very much. This is the BBC. And the
They can have a new show. Britain's got absolutely nobody of any value, but a fair number of paedophiles.
There you go. We've got no talent. And so that's the idea is that everybody's equal. So whether you're talented or untalented or anything else, and so people cannot abuse their position. So you can no longer refer to somebody as talent.
Oh, so yeah, I suppose. So now somebody's a presenter rather than talent.
Yes.
Because then other people are not. Oh, I might agree with that, Katie.
There you go. Katie, do you believe in talent? Are you going to name the other 9? Or are you worried about defamation?
No.
The interesting thing is this. Trust comes in on foot but leaves on horseback. What they're trying to do is to change the optics. So by saying we've got this policy, this is one aspect. I don't think it would have changed any of the historical things.
No, I don't.
By saying you're not talent, it would turn around, it might make people more depressed or whatever. So the reality is they're trying to say to the public, in the same way as you get a sheet of paper, which some people don't read, and you say, this is what you're not allowed to do. The reality is that's about the optics. They're saying, this is what we do in these circumstances. We've got our policy,
but Pete,
and we no longer call them talent.
But Pete, that is about being untouchable. Yeah. It's got nothing to do with people not noticing. It's got nothing to do with the policy. If one of our presenters behaved like that in the dressing room, very simple, the producers would call security and they'd just be removed from the building immediately.
Yeah.
Like in any normal organisation.
Yeah, and I think this is the point, is that the issue isn't what words you use, it's the fact that people turned a blind eye and deliberately turned a blind eye. That is the bit that if you look at
what about also people being bullied by thinking, I can't say anything about this? I mean, how rotten does your organisation have to be when large numbers of people suspect child sex offences are not going on with your staff, going on in your building with your staff, and they go, don't say anything, I'll get into trouble. I'll get into trouble if I mention it.
Yeah, sorry, Katie, but this is entirely the problem with the BBC, and you mentioned it earlier. It is oversight. There is no real oversight to the BBC. They mark their own homework.
Yes.
It is absolutely abhorrent how we've allowed this system within the BBC to foster.
So what would you suggest they should do differently?
Scrap the BBC.
Scrap the BBC. Well, that's hardly a solution.
It's an institution. You cannot reform a rotten
We live in a
institution.
diseased information information age when it's never been more important to have an independent broadcaster
It's-
holding people's feet to the fire.
Oh, he's a communist. He's a communist.
It's true.
Red's under the bed. Red's under the bed.
But I have to say, abolishing the word talent is not going to solve the problem.
it's not. No.
And you're right. There's a question of trust. There's a question of the other bits and
I'll
pieces.
tell you what we'll do. If we don't call Hugh Edwards a talent, he'll no longer be a sex offender. I will tell you, I know psychiatric doctors who would dispute that as a method. But I'll tell you what, sit down, sir. All I have to say to you is, you've got no talent. Oh, no, I've stopped being a sex offender.
Yeah, but does this not tell you quite kind of how stereotypical the BBC has become? That they think, oh, just change some words and everything will be better. It just shows that they don't take this issue seriously because they don't understand the gravity of the issue.
What I love is playing devil's advocate. It's not just changing a few words. They're trying to make it say, this is our policy. What they need to do is
why don't they just put a policy? Don't either A, be a pedo, B, let a pedo get away with it, or C, cover up for a pedo.
There you go.
Like, that would be those three.
Three words would be
by the way, to our dear viewers and listeners, that advice just transcends. I mean, just in your everyday life, I just feel like, just don't.
Just don't.
Just don't.
And
the opposite of night.
What happened? The BBC get hundreds of complaints. This is what they said. They get hundreds of complaints every week. And what they need to do is make sure they've got a clear policy. And they say, this is the policy that we've got. You're right. What we do, we pick up on one little aspect of it. Abolishing the word talent makes the whole thing sound nonsensical. What they need to do is a very clear policy so we can restore that trust. Trust comes in on foot and leaves on horseback, as I always say.
Right,
that's what the BBC... I do. I
say about 3 times. What is that? What is that?
It's got to be good. It's always
Point to the camera.
Camera 3. It's got to be good. They know what's happening. It's good. The reality is exactly
I'd love to see him in court.
Just
a theatrical.
I'll produce my next witness.
Just leaves on horseback. Oh, shut up. Shut up, Eborn. Get on with it. OK, so what has Tim Davie banned at the BBC?
Talent.
Is absolutely correct.
That was The Woke That Was. Continues after the break.
Vodafone Red Unlimited. Eindeloos livestreamen met je volgers. Kan gewoon. Met Vodafone Red Unlimited heb je onbegrensd 5G-internet. Ontdek meer op Vodafone.nl.
That was The Woke That Was with Andre Walker.
So, Katie, Transport Secretary Louise Hay has agreed to give train guards a £300 bonus every time they do what?
Work. Quite frankly, it seems like a lot of these heavily radicalised unions have basically run roughshod over consecutive governments. So we've just allowed it to the fact that instead of you working your full hours, you have to be paid extra to work on certain days. I'm sorry, there are 9-to-5 jobs. If you want a 9-to-5 job, you don't go into certain industries. End of discussion. Like, for instance, you don't come up on the television, for instance. It's not a 9-to-5 industry.
No, just do 1 hour. That's it.
Yes, exactly.
And
That's what we do.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
I spend hours prepping for this.
When does that happen?
Never.
You don't read anything.
Never. Never. I don't know. I buy the drinks afterwards.
You do.
Yeah. No, but I think you bring up a really good point there, Katie, that, the trade union here, the RMT and all the rest of them, they have run roughshod over multiple governments. But this government essentially seems to be like hand in glove with them. Louise Hay has, let's be honest, has gone rogue multiple times when dealing...
Rather than DP World going.
Yes, exactly. But,
Now, the big problem is, Katie, you've not quite got this right.
Oh, Katie.
Because you've said... so the bonus is for working, but I want you to be a bit more specific than that.
Working specifically on weekends, especially on Saturdays. Now, I would quite like...
No, still wrong.
Five days a
It's
week.
a 5. That's your 5 a week. 5 days.
Yes, because they try and split it over a number of days. And we have this in other professions such as nursing, etc. But nursing is far more important than these overpaid, absolute, stupidly... held on a pedestal by the Labour Party train drivers.
All you have to do if you drive a train, so you have to push that, what's it called, dead man's wheel or whatever.
The dead man's wheel, you have to push it.
No, I forget.
You don't push a wheel.
I forget exactly what it's called, but there's a pedal under your feet that if you're incapacitated...
And you have to do that.
If you're incapacitated, you take your feet off and the train will stop. But apart from that, you just put your feet down and go...
No, but you have to blow your whistle occasionally.
No, you don't. Dude.
Come on.
You don't have to blow a whistle anymore.
You love to have your whistle. You've got to.
Why are we doing that to the turds?
You love it. That's one of the bonuses. That's the reason they could do it, in addition to 300 quid.
Oh, you could go past Francis Bourgeois.
Those are the best videos ever. I love it.
What's he saying? It's throwing hellfire!
He's brilliant. Oh, I love those videos. Fantastic.
Anyway. My mate said they saw him at Clapham Junction Station and he just wasn't bothered about the trains.
I couldn't go. No, it's all an act. He hates trains.
I don't think he hates them.
He doesn't. He loves
Try
them.
and drag it back to the question.
Was there a question at all of this? Apparently.
There is a big problem here for the Labour Party, and that is optics, yet again.
Optics?
Whilst they're taking away the winter fuel allowance, they are giving £300 bonuses to train drivers. I mean, come on, at some point this government has to get itself into gear in terms of how it's going to present itself.
How do you get a train into gear?
That would be good, wouldn't it? They don't have gears, do they?
No, they just all they do is...
I'm pretty sure they have gears.
They don't
have gears. Of course they don't have gears. You don't have to do that with your stick coming up to a junction. What's that about?
I don't know. I don't get paid 300 quid a month.
You have a dead man's wheel. That's what you have. He told you.
Look, the reality is you could automate the trains and they'd be much better.
All of these trains will be automated. You don't need drivers. And if they ask for too much money, AI, which is going to rule all of our lives, will take over a lot quicker.
By the way, you were completely wrong about your advice to me about my intellectual property problem.
What was that? What was your I'm never wrong.
So I worked for a television channel when I was a teenager, and I used to sign a form that said they could use my likeness in any way across the universe by methods invented or not invented.
Yes, well, fight over the black hole.
But I wasn't 18.
Oh, well, I didn't know you weren't 18. So that's a line he uses.
So to the television company that's attempting to create an AI me, just have that. You've lost now, haven't you?
Did your parents not advise you on that contract?
My parents didn't sign anything.
Oh, good for you too. There we are. Fill in on the facts. So you're quite right. You cannot enter into a contract unless you're of age and work on that premise. So you're
well,
right.
There we go. That's free legal advice.
That's free, not free. Who said it was free?
It's like watching a documentary by Uber Butler. Okay, anyway, so what was it? No, Katie, I think we're going to give you this wrong. Because you said...
Say five.
What has Louise Hay said she's going to give £300 to train guards to do?
If they work 5 days a week. Oh, my goodness, what a shocking
Is absolutely correct. Pete?
Yes.
Wat zit er in jouw bonusbox? Laat je elke week verrassen door je persoonlijke voordeel. Kijk snel in de AH-app.
15 Caribbean nations are demanding how much from the UK in compensation for its role in slavery?
Well, they're demanding roughly about £200 billion of Britain's role in the transatlantic slave trade. However, some estimates go up to 19 trillion. So, 200 billion seems quite cheap, really, on the end of it. But no, this is to do with the upcoming Heads of Government Summit for the Commonwealth nations, and it is yet again another boring argument about who's to blame for the slave trade and should we all pay for it and all the rest of it. The correct answer is none of us should pay for it. None of us were involved in it. None of us owned a slave. None of us.
You're so wrong on this because there's a glorious precedent. Because the Vikings, what did they do to us? The Romans. We could follow that precedent, go all the way back, we'd knock on Scandinavia's door because that's got a lot of money.
Yes.
We'll speak to the Italians. Get off the grass, and we'll have all that sort of stuff. So we should absolutely go for billions, and with inflation and everything, that would solve all our problems.
The big problem is when they say somebody says they're a descendant of a slave. Everybody is a descendant of a slave. There are including every royal, is a descendant of a slave. Admittedly, the majority of their descendants weren't slaves, but they are descended from slaves.
And Christians used to be thrown to the lions. What about compensation for that?
Yeah,
I find it absolutely ridiculous. But I have to say, I saw this bloke who had a big house as a result of his family being slave masters. And I thought he was completely idiotic because he was talking about, maybe I should sell it or whatever. What he should actually have said is the following. It's open to the public. I don't actually live in the damn thing, right? And it doesn't make any profit. No. The reality is the way of unpicking all these things is completely impossible. But I will say one thing. Richard Drax and the Drax estate, I don't think he can defend owning a slave estate in... where is it? It's not Jamaica, is it Barbados?
Barbados, yeah. So it's actually the Prime Minister of Barbados, because they're kind of spearhead of this initiative of these 15 nations. And They're all about electing the new Secretary General of the Commonwealth.
I'll give you a bonus point, Pete, if you can tell me who Barbados elected as their new president.
Oh, no idea.
The governor that the Queen had appointed as governor. That's a major change.
Well, I've got to say, the bigger threat isn't the king. It's actually, as per usual, David Lammy.
Yes.
Because David Lammy always brings up that he's a descendant of Caribbean slaves, and he's headed, and they're really pushing him to really lead this forward within the cabinet. Now, Number 10 has shut this down, but as we say, it's not going anywhere, this argument, for a very long time. And my big fear is we've already seen them give away the Chagos Islands. We've already seen this kind of capitulation to the woke agenda by this government. So could we see some movement on this issue? And my fear is give an inch and we're paying 200 billion at some point. And I'm very scared about this, actually, because of the precedent this government could set.
But Lammy would be in favour of it, wouldn't he? Because there is an element, and I've seen this with immigration, I've seen this with international bodies. There are elements within the Labour Party, and I lament this fact because the Labour Party was a great force for good, as the trade union movement was in counties like Lancashire and Yorkshire, where we're from. But there is no doubt there are elements within the Labour Party that want the United Kingdom to fail. They believe that there cannot be global socialism as long as the United Kingdom remains a free, independent and financially viable nation.
Yeah, absolutely. And these are insidious forces, and we should make no bones about it. People think everything left with Jeremy Corbyn. It did not. We have put very radical people on this front bench that Keir Starmer is having a really tough time controlling. But back to the reparations point. Are they going to go to the African nations that now exist and ask them to pay reparations?
Yeah.
These slaves weren't just picked up by the vessels that went there. Also, the reason that the global slave trade was put to an end was because of this country.
Yes.
And
no, hang on. Katie, I'm really sorry. I'm going to have to stop you there because I think that whilst you have... I think you've got the argument right, and I agree with you. There is an element to what you just said which I think is dangerous. The slave trade is bigger now than it was during that period. The point is, it is now confined largely within Africa.
Well,
Bangladesh also has a large number of slaves, which admittedly is in Asia. But I argue, personally, that part of the reason why we make such a big thing about the transatlantic slave trade is because I think obviously it was more organised than most slavery now, but also it gives an opportunity for people to hold, bluntly, white people to blame for the ills of the world.
Well, exactly. And I actually think that is deeply racist, but not for the point you would think. I think it's because they don't allow the full spectrum of human positivity and human evil to the rest of the world where there aren't white people. And I think that is insidious. And you're treating other nations and infantilizing them like children.
And the reality is history is ugly. And you're working on that sort of basis. And you're right to call out there are slaves in today's society, which we need to shine a spotlight on.
There are. I'll be honest with you, Andrew, and I'm sorry to say this, but there are diplomats in the United Kingdom who use their diplomatic power to use slaves in London.
Yes.
Forget the rest of it. Now, I have to say to you, what upsets me more than anything else, and forgive me for saying this so many times, these young people who film themselves pulling down the statue of somebody who wasn't a slave trader, historically, with a phone made by a 9-year-old in a Chinese Laogai.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
And this is the thing that has annoyed me no end since this kind of resurfacing of these kind of issues is I wish we would put that much effort and that much emphasis on ending what you've just mentioned there, as we did about talking about something that literally ended 200 years ago. We have to start dealing with realpolitik and start dealing with the issues that we have today. Like you said, we have maid markets, we have the slavery happening here in London and in the UK, and more people seem to be concerned about something that happened 200 years ago than what's happening today.
I'm also very sorry to say this, but if you want to get ugly, let's get ugly. The reality is that, admittedly, against their will, the people of Jamaica took the land of Jamaica off the original Jamaicans. There are no Africans from the West Indies originally. Now, what do we want to do? Do we now want to say perhaps that Angola should pay back the indigenous people of Tobago, Trinidad and Tobago?
Or go to America and see where the Native Americans are.
Yeah.
See what's happened there.
Would we go to Alabama and say, look, I'm very sorry, but whilst the white people took this land, you're now living on it as well, and it's time to... What upsets me more than anything else is the freeze framing in history of this one moment. You hear it all the time. You hear it. It has to be said with with people who are Islamic nationalists. The minute any Muslim has ever lived in a particular area, they call it Islamic land.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I think that what we should do is the 200 billion should be paid to the Caribbean, who should pay compensation back to Africa for what they did. That should be 200 billion as well. And Africa, because they involved us in the slave trade and we had to end it, should pay the 200 back to Britain.
Yeah.
There we go. Everybody gets compensation.
And then go for the Vikings and the Romans.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. With inflation.
If your name ends in son, I'm coming for you. Son, because you're a Viking. Because you're a Viking.
Listen up, son.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So, how much are they demanding?
£200 billion.
Yeah,
Bargain.
good luck with that. It's absolutely correct.
That was The Woke That Was. Continues after the break.
Wij zijn BetMGM. We geven niet zomaar deeltjes, we geven gouden deals, zoals deze. BetMGM. It's showtime.
That was The Woke That Was with Andre Walker.
Okay, Andrew, the NHS has banned doctors and nurses from using which phrase because it might upset people who have lost their sight?
Well, it's the blind leading the blind, and I think we should turn a deaf ear to it, because I think the reality... I think I'm here all week.
That's a shame.
That's what's happening. So they're turning around, because it will offend people who are partially sighted or have to wear glasses every now and again, and that sort of stuff. So
Are we allowed to say... Are we allowed to say in the kingdom of the blind, the one-eyed man is king?
No, well, that's probably true.
That's probably the worst.
You're right. So highlighting any disability on that sort of basis is difficult, you know. And I think this is what's Dr. Andrew...
So for a bonus point,
yes.
Does anybody know what the biggest comment made on last week's YouTube show was? Oh. It was asking whether you were blind, Andrew.
I was not right.
Because you had those dark glasses on.
Yes, it's true. It's true. It's because I had this white funny red eye.
You can part your glasses on.
I look like a gangster. I look like the guy who used to do that really expensive steak. Well, remember the salt jab?
Salt Bay.
No, no, you're thinking of Emu.
That's
again.
Emu.
That's Emu.
Yeah,
you've got like one impersonation, haven't you? You sort of go from Emu to this guy who does the salt.
But that's how he does it.
And that's sooty without...
I'll tell you what.
He does.
I'll tell you what. For 800 quid,
yes.
You'd have to do more than that.
What? I thank you.
That was quite rude, Andrew.
I thank you.
Andrew, we're going to move on. Go on. What is it?
It's the blind leading the blind.
Is absolutely correct. Katie, Keir Starmer has banned a portrait of which Prime Minister from number 10 this week?
Well, as we've been hearing, it's many portraits he's taken out, but this one specifically is about Gladstone. And a lot of, as we were talking earlier, about these woke university students that like tearing down statues, they've often had it in for Gladstone.
Why?
Because they're morons, fundamentally, because they haven't, in fact, opened a history book. These people that tell everyone, oh, open a book, oh, you need to read, they can't, in fact, read themselves.
Be kind.
What I found quite interesting was that in this, it's meant to be about the redecoration of Downing Street, etc., which we heard enough about when Carrie Johnson was
That's absolutely right.
Carrie doesn't live here anymore.
No, she doesn't. So they've torn down the wallpaper.
Yes.
And one
Interior resigns.
Exactly.
I remember the headline.
So, and Keir Starmer's excuse, especially for removing the portrait of Margaret Thatcher from the study, was that he doesn't like being stared at by portraits. Now, you are the Prime Minister. You should be used to being stared at.
If he doesn't like being stared at, that'd be so good, like I'd walked past him in the corridor. But the reality is, and Katie alluded to this, Pete, there's a lot of this going on. You know, wokery, tearing down statues, you know, capitulation to the EU, obsessions with slavery. A lot of this stuff that we believed idiotically was confined to universities. Then we discovered that corporate Britain, HR departments, or as I prefer to call them, human remains, they are full of it as well. Hello to all the...
Well, no, gesture.
But we now know the leadership of the Labour Party completely agree with all this stuff, don't we?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. And this is the thing, if you ever wanted to know what it would look like if a student union ran the country, we're living through.
That's absolutely
and
right.
This is what it is. It is amateur politics by amateur people running around doing whatever their little brains want them to do. And, you know, it might not seem like a big thing, like removing a couple of paintings, but what those paintings and those people represent is very important. You know, they represent the state, they represent Britain. And, you know, just removing it is kind of whitewashing our history. And, yeah, as Andrew said, history is often ugly and it's brutal and it's not often the nicest thing. But I think it actually shows a grown-up nation that says, like, yeah, OK, we were involved in that, but this is how we made things better. This is how we progressed as a nation.
Katie, I just want to ask you, because your former Conservative advisor, were you advisor when they did well or badly?
Well, thankfully.
So here's my question to you on a serious note, because it's the first time you've appeared.
Yes.
What on earth should the new leader of the Conservative Party, whoever that is, or indeed what should any of the opposition parties... whichever one it is. Right. OK, it's Robert Jenrick versus Kemi Bain-Nog. OK. But what should... the opposition parties now do in order to defeat the Labour Party?
No.
Maybe that's my new job.
It is.
OK, my desk is now broken, apparently.
Oh, that's
What
good.
is wrong? What is wrong with the desk? Come on, get the desk. Fix it. Well, that must be that thing that does that, right?
I put it in there, that's it.
No, don't put it in anywhere.
It's like a montage.
OK. I think what we're going to do now is go to a break. Back in a moment.
That was The Woke That Was continues after the break. That was The Woke That Was with Andre Walker.
Welcome back. I think that I've managed to get down. Hide. Welcome back. So that was The Woke That Was. Just cut to Pete for a second. OK, Pete, talk about something. Talk about something.
I can't remember what we were talking about.
Talk about anything. Talk about anything.
Thank you.
Kate, if you were any good at electrical engineering...
Shocking.
No, what the question that I was going to ask, and welcome back, everyone. The question I was going to ask was... Oh, I'm puffed out. The question I was going to ask... Get out of it. Right. That wasn't a rude joke. Kate, if you were the leader of the opposition now, what would you do to try and beat Keir Starmer?
With a stick.
Yes, preferably a woke stick, you know. Well, I think you just have to be competent at this stage. Competent, you have to have a clear message that you keep repeating. People say politicians don't ever answer the question. And if we think back to David...
Give me an example of it.
Well, she's not answering my one.
Exactly.
If we think back to the example of David Cameron when he first came in, you could repeat what their message was, and that got through. Whereas Keir Starmer and the Conservative Party also just seem to be in complete...
Yeah, but Katie, isn't the problem...
I think that's an interesting point.
Katie, isn't part of the problem, though, with that? I mean, Margaret Thatcher once said that she had no respect for Neil Kinnock because she said it was a fundamentally disreputable project to attempt to persuade people to vote Labour despite what Labour would do to the country. So the idea is to pretend Labour is something different to what it is. I want a politician to admit what they actually believe in and what they want to do.
Absolutely.
Keir Starmer, had he told the British public what he was going to do in office, he might have even lost to Rishi Sunak, which would have been a real success story for utter political failure.
But the thing is, people don't want to be told what people think. They want to be told what they think. That's the issue in this country. They want to...
You were doing your inner Maggie then, weren't you? You were very good.
I think he brings up a really interesting point about why I think the Starmer government has collapsed so rapidly, and that is the lack of message discipline. In opposition, they were the most... No. Let me make the point. In opposition, they were the most regimented, on point, where nobody strayed from the line. Everybody knew exactly their points to say. They may not have answered the question, but they stuck to the point. Now they've got into government. Everybody has gone everywhere. The wheels have come off the car.
Yeah, but surely, Pete, look, I've got respect for you in your professional competency, but you can't tell me that the problem here isn't that the Labour Party, the message discipline was that the Labour Party successfully persuaded the British public to vote for them despite their own best interests. So this government is not in the best interests of the public. And the problem now is the Labour Party's policies and their people. Message discipline is what got us in the mess.
And the lies, the weasel words. Weasel words.
And this P&O is owned by DP World.
DP, you can't mention DP.
And I was waiting for that. And they pulled this £1 billion. Louise...
Correct. Pete.
Yes.
Transport Secretary Louise Hay, didn't even know who she was until this morning, has lost Britain how much money after criticising P&O ferries?
Oh, this is an outstanding story where the Transport Secretary Louise Hay, she's about yay big with bright pink hair. You could imagine her on a Corbynista march. She cost the country about £1 billion. And this was from a major investment. The Keir Starmer's rather flop of an investment summit because her...
The only investment summit where they got less money at the end than when they started.
But no, so basically, Louise Hay and Angela Rayner had a pop at P&O Ferries, calling them a rogue operator, rogue employer and all the rest of it. And P&O is owned by DP World.
DP, you can't mention DP.
And I was waiting for that. And... They pulled this £1 billion investment from, which was going to be about expanding one of the big ports up near Gatwick and all the rest of it. And then they said they weren't going to attend the conference. They did in the end, and there was a bit of toing and froing. But this shows yet again that, this kind of amateur level of, maybe don't have a go at the company that you're asking for £1 billion from.
And
I've just realised something. Yeah. I'm sorry to say this. It stands for Dubai Ports, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Right, OK.
Yeah. I know it. What did you think it meant?
Hey, by the way, bonus point.
Yes.
What does P&O stand for?
I don't say that, but that's even worse.
Peninsula and Oriental.
It does, and that's what it used to be called because it was over there and over there. The worst thing about the summit is the person who was absent was the most important person to invite, and that was Elon Musk. And I was talking to his father, Errol, regular on my show, and the reality is exactly...
My mum, who's a nurse.
I give you the line every week. The reality is that how can you not invite the most famous, the de facto president of the United States?
No.
And turn around on that sort of basis.
What makes it even worse is the government's reason for not inviting him.
Yes.
Apparently, he doesn't have enough money. That was literally one of the...
neither does Louise Hay these days.
Yeah. No, but what makes it even better about Louise Hay is that the Keir Starmer was forced to come out and use the most dreaded words. I have full confidence in her position.
Yes,
she better start updating her CV because we all know in the political world, if someone's got their full confidence in you, you're out by the end of the week.
OK, Pete, how much did Louise Hay lose at the investment summit?
It's £1 billion.
Unbelievable, £1,000 million. OK, thank you so much to my panel tonight. Thank you so much to Andrew Eborn. Thank you so much to Pete Barnes. But the winner, of course, despite the fact she was the only person to get the question wrong, we're not fair or egalitarian or reasonable here. So the winner is Katie Franks.
Hey,
Katie!
High five in a
Katie,
sort of way.
Katie, your prize is a Wetherspoons meal up to a maximum value of £9.95. Which one are you going to pick? I think it's burger and a pint.
Yeah.
OK, until next time, goodbye.